Hello, beautiful people. It's Lulu. Welcome to the Lulu Essie podcast, where we do things differently. No editing, no polishing, no fancy studio magic, just honest conversations that stay exactly as they happened. Let's be honest, because that's what we do on this podcast. Have you ever put yourself out there and not gotten the response you hoped for? When I asked for your questions on mental fitness last week, I hardly got any. And my first reaction, I felt so bummed, so disappointed. I felt like maybe, and it was a big maybe, I had failed. And then I did what I try to always do, sometimes more successfully than others. I coached myself through it. Yes, I do use these tools on myself all the time. And here's what I realized. This actually gave me the perfect opportunity to talk about something real for all of us. What happens when things don't go as planned? How do we handle those moments where we put ourselves out there and don't get the response we hoped for? Because that is where mental fitness lives and breathes. So today I'm doing something different. I'm answering the biggest questions I know come up when we start this journey. These are the things I've been asked in conversations, in coaching with my clients, and in life. And I have a feeling these might just be the questions that you've had too. So let's get into it. How do I start on my mental fitness if I feel completely overwhelmed? And we're going to break this down together, step by step. First, let me say this. If you are feeling overwhelmed, you are not alone. I hear this all the time, and I also feel this often. And let's be real, starting anything when you're overwhelmed feels completely and utterly impossible. It's completely normal to feel this way. In fact, it's almost expected. Let me remind you, you are not broken and nothing has gone wrong. But here's the key. You don't have to do everything at once. And I need to remind myself of this all the time. You just have to start. That's it. Just start. One tiny step, one micro deposit. There is something to be mindful of, though. For the perfectionists out there, sometimes you feel like you want the complete answer. You want to know all the steps before you start. And all that does is keep you stuck. Just one small step is enough. I promise you that. Even if that step feels minuscule. Let's go back for a second to the metaphor of the mental fitness bank from episode 11. Think of your mental fitness like a bank account. You don't need to make a massive deposit today. You just need to put in one small deposit, if you can. What's one thing you can do right now? Maybe it's just taking 3 deep breaths as part of the 3-breath reset. And as a reminder, that is simply taking 3 conscious breaths, feeling the air coming into your body and feeling it leave your body. That is it. Another small step can be staying hydrated, drinking a glass of water. Maybe it's sending a text to a friend saying, "You're on my mind and in my heart." Or if you're at work and feeling overwhelmed, maybe it's taking a moment to pause before your next meeting. Maybe it's sending that email asking for support. That's it. Every small step counts. Every micro deposit builds your reserve. Mental fitness isn't about doing it all. It's about doing something. And even the smallest motion keeps you moving. And movement, no matter how small, builds momentum. And when we start, that's when we build this momentum. So let's look at it now. You've taken that first step. You've made that tiny micro deposit. Maybe it was a 3-breath reset, a glass of water, or just acknowledging that you're ready to begin. And that's amazing. But I know the question that often comes up. The question that comes up next is, how do I actually keep this going when life keeps throwing more and more at me? When life just keeps getting busier and busier? Sound at all familiar? Okay, so let's be real here. Starting is one thing, but staying consistent when the demands on your time feel endless, that's a whole different challenge. And we're going to talk about it. So the question is, how do I stay consistent when life gets busy and the demands on my time feel like they keep getting bigger and bigger? This is such a big question because, let's face it, life doesn't slow down just because we decide to prioritize our mental fitness. In fact, when we decide to prioritize our mental fitness, sometimes it feels like at that moment we try to be more consistent and focus on our mental fitness. Life just throws even more at us and things start feeling like they are speeding up. But here is what is vital to remember. Consistency is not about being perfect. It's about showing up imperfectly, messily, and in a way that works for you. I believe in keeping things as simple as possible and keeping things doable. Doable your way. And I want to assure you, let there be no doubt, I am not immune to feeling overwhelmed. Okay, so what do? First, I want to encourage you to embrace what I've spoken about before and what I call imperfect action. Let it be messy. If you miss a day, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. Just pick up again when you can. Don't let missing a day be the reason why you miss 2 days, then 3 days, and then why you end up giving up altogether. Missing a day is not the end of the world. It is simply a part of the process. Pick up the next day and keep moving. The second piece is knowing when to give yourself grace. And I don't mean letting yourself off the hook. I mean truly understanding when you need to take your foot off the gas without guilt, without beating yourself up and thinking you're a failure. I say this all the time. Grace isn't giving up. Grace is knowing when pushing harder won't get you where you want to go. Grace is self-compassion. It is self-love. So I want to talk about one of my favorite tools. Some people call it the 1-minute rule. But you know me, I'm not a fan of rules. So I prefer to call it the 1-minute guide. If something takes less than a minute to do, whether it's a 3-breath reset, stretching, sending a quick text message, or finding something to be grateful for, just do it. Just do that thing. These tiny moments add up over time and they create that momentum. And a reminder that gratitude is your mental fitness superfood. Remember gratitude? It is so powerful and we can always find something, even if it's the smallest, tiniest thing, to be grateful for. What it does is it helps shift our mindset. So, instead of aiming for every single day when it comes to your mental fitness practice, adjust your focus to most days. Progress over perfection. Show up for yourself in whatever way you can and trust that it all counts. Because it does. And trust that you are worth it. Because you absolutely are. Okay, so now you're showing up for yourself, maybe not every day, but most days. You're making small deposits, practicing grace, embracing imperfect action, and yet something still feels off. You're doing the work, but you're not seeing the progress you're expected. It feels like you're stuck. Anyone else been there? That frustrating place where you're doing everything so-called right, but you still feel like you're treading water. It can be really frustrating. But what I want you to know is this. Feeling stuck does not mean you're failing. Again, it means you're human. So let's talk about what to do when you hit that wall. So the question is, what if I'm doing all the work, but I still feel stuck? All right, let's talk about this, because I know this feeling really well. You're showing up, you're doing the work, you're making those micro deposits, practicing the 3-breath reset, drinking water, keeping your commitments to yourself on most days. And yet, it feels like nothing in your life is changing. And that's bloody frustrating, right? But here's the truth. Growth is happening, even if you can't see it yet. I want you to take a second and just think about planting a seed. When you plant a seed, for the longest time, nothing appears to be happening. You water it, you nurture it, give it sunlight, but above the surface of the soil, it looks like nothing's changing. But under the soil, the seed is breaking open, the roots are stretching, growth is happening, just in a way you can't see yet. And then one day, almost like magic, a sprout appears. We have no problem accepting this in nature. Not only do we accept it, but we expect it and we don't question it. But when it comes to our lives, our daily lives, we struggle to accept this. I struggle to accept this. But how about we apply nature's wisdom? It's so simple, so powerful, and can be so helpful. Because this is how mental fitness works too. Just because you don't see proof of immediate changes does not mean nothing is happening. Your brain is literally rewiring. That's right. Your brain is rewiring. Your resilience is building. The tiny deposits you've made are stacking up in ways you don't even realize yet. But if you stop now, if you dig up the soil and say, this isn't working, you interrupt the process before the sprout even gets a chance to break through. And I have done this before. So instead of constantly looking for external proof that what you're doing, that you're doing it right, what if we just focused on showing up? Focused on the good feelings we feel when we show up for ourselves. On trusting that every single small action counts, even when it feels invisible or too tiny to even matter. Remember, it all matters. What if, instead of pushing harder, you paused and reminded yourself, growth is happening. I just can't see it yet. And then connect with the feeling of how good it feels to show up for you. And this is why honoring our own rhythms and pace is so absolutely critical. Some seasons are for fast, obvious growth. Others are for rooting deeper. Both seasons are equally valuable and equally valid. So the next time you feel stuck, ask yourself, am I actually stuck? Or am I just in the part of the process where change is happening beneath the surface? Trust your process, trust your timing, and just keep going. And I want to let you in on something. I really struggled with this past week. I mean, really frigging struggled. And again, I had to coach myself on this because I felt so stuck. I kept looking around me for the proof, the evidence in my outer world of the changes that I'm after. And I couldn't see them in the way I wanted to see them. I felt like the change wasn't happening at all. And little by little, I remembered the power of the seed beneath the soil. And I remembered to trust that change is happening, even if I can't see proof of it yet. I consciously, intentionally connected with my feeling, with the feeling of showing up every single day. Despite evidence, despite outside proof. And the overwhelm I was feeling started to slowly lift. I kept visualizing all the magnificent things going on beneath the surface of the soil, so to speak. And relief eased its way to me. And again, I will always be honest with you. This past week was not an easy process for me because, God damn it, I wanted the proof. So now you know, just because we don't see progress in the outside world doesn't mean it's not happening. Stay with it. Because growth is unfolding beneath the surface. And honoring our own rhythm is key. But what if there was a simple tool, one tool that could help you reconnect with yourself, shift your mindset, and deepen your mental fitness practice in a whole new way? And this is a tool that I use very often. And it's been a game changer for me. So I want to talk to you about one of the mental fitness tools I swear by. And it's a tool that I actually spoke about in episode 11. But I want to come back to it because it is incredibly simple but deeply powerful. And I call it pause and notice. Because sometimes when we feel stuck, overwhelmed, or disconnected, the best thing we can do is come back to our senses. Literally. And by that I mean our five senses: sight, touch, smell, taste, feel. This practice can take as little as 10 seconds, but you can extend it if that feels good to you. Do what is doable from where you're at. And this is nothing mysterious. This is a simple yet powerful mindfulness exercise. And there is so much scientific evidence to support the fact that mindfulness is highly effective in improving mental health. And here's how this tool works. Right now, wherever you are, take a deep breath and notice your physical senses. What is one thing you can see? One thing you can hear? One thing you can feel? One thing you can smell? One thing you can taste? That's it. And when you do that, you bring yourself back into the present moment. The place where all your power lies, the present moment. You can be as creative as you choose with this exercise. Keep it short or really go deep. It's up to you. It's your practice, so you get to do it your way. Just remember to focus on your physical senses. Don't get into, I feel this emotion, or I feel, no. Stay focused on your physical senses. And why does this matter so much? Because being present, even just for a few seconds, is a micro deposit in your mental fitness bank. And very importantly, it interrupts the spiral that's happening in your brain. It grounds you, and it actually resets your nervous system. And beauties, this isn't just my experience talking here. As I mentioned, there is powerful evidence to back this up. So do you want to know what the researchers discovered? A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the Journal of Psychosomatic Research in 2015 found that mindfulness practices significantly improve mental health outcomes, including reducing stress, anxiety, and depression in healthy individuals. Whoa, that's a mouthful of big words. And it is how I need to credibly cite a scientific study. But let's break it down into plain, easy to understand language. What this study showed is that in relatively healthy people, and by that I mean people who are not at that point in time suffering from a severe mental illness, mindfulness effectively it reduces the amount of stress and anxiety and depression we feel in daily life. Even more simply put, there is science, there is evidence to show that mindfulness improves our mental health, improves our mental fitness. I'd love you to try it right now, wherever you are. Just pause, notice with your senses. And then, when you're ready, move forward, more grounded and more connected to yourself. So beauties, we've covered a lot today. From what to do when things don't go as planned, a big one, to staying consistent, to trusting the process, even when we can't see results. And you know what? Some of the simplest tools, like this pause and notice practice, can be the most powerful. There is such power in simplicity. And please, please, please remember, mental fitness isn't about being perfect or having it all figured out. It's about showing up for yourself, one tiny step at a time. Even when, actually, especially when, things don't go as we've planned. So let me ask you, did this resonate with you? What's one challenge you're facing in your mental fitness journey? DM me on Instagram at lulu.se with the words mental fitness and your question. I would love to feature it in an upcoming episode. Oh, and speaking of what's next, the next episode is called Fucking Fabulous in February. And it's set to be a kicker. And it's not lost on me that the episode goes out the day before Valentine's Day. But we are going to explore things in a whole new and hopefully thrilling way. So beauties, get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew about February, about fun, and about being effing fabulous. And if this episode spoke to you, share it. Please share. You just never know whose life you might touch by sharing a little light today. And if you're enjoying this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you could leave a review, rate, or share it on social media. Your questions matter, your growth matters, and your mental fitness, well, it's a lifelong journey, and I'm right here with you, walking the path with you. And as always, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, like every single day, this comes straight from my heart to yours.